Is military leadership really that bad? That's what you see all over social media. I'm getting out of the military because of this. I'm getting out of the military because of my toxic leadership, so on and so forth. Here on the After Actions podcast, we're about to talk about that and deep dive into it. Let's get into it. I can definitely say in my 12-year Marine Corps career that I've had good leadership. I've had bad leadership. I've been a good leader, and I would also consider myself a bad leader at times. Lou, can you please tell the people some of the signs of a bad leader, maybe even a good leader?
Well, first off, it's to me it's open to interpretation, right? Because a lot of times, personalities can collide. That doesn't necessarily mean that that person's a bad leader. It just
Yep.
means that you just don't see eye to eye all the time. But for me, some qualities, that I wouldn't even call qualities, but some signs of a bad leader would be, that leader thinking about themselves first, not looking out for the junior Marines. It's all me, not we or us or y'all, because to me, a good leader is going to put his Marines, his subordinates, in front of himself or herself, and that's
Yeah.
not always that's not always the case. And honestly, that's the reason why I got out. I felt like throughout my whole entire career, I was in for 13 years. I was a good leader. I took care of my Marines, and I felt like it was time to finally take care of myself. But in order for me to do that, I needed to get out of the Marine Corps because it wouldn't be fair for my Marines if I stayed in, and that was like the mentality that I was headed towards. But honestly, looking back at I knew I can identify that about myself, but unfortunately, that's not the case. And we got every day more and more good service members that would get out as a result of bad leadership.
Yeah. Yeah. What about you, Ant? Like, I know that you've been in for some years at this point. I mean, you're of the three of us, you're the one that's still in. I also happen to understand the fact that you got some paperwork on your file, right? Like you've gotten
Yep.
in trouble here or there, minor stuff, people. But do you think that those are things that you brought upon yourself? Do you think that that was because of bad leadership? What's your opinion on it?
Man, I definitely think it was brought upon myself. I was a young dumb Marine, thinking I was hot shit and I could kind of get away with everything. But I'm also grateful for that kind of experience because it made me into a better leader. Watching them and how they deal with me and how it could have went sideways. I could have got punished a lot worse, but I happen to have good work ethic and I wasn't, causing trouble all the time. It was very rare. So they're kind of lenient on me whenever I did get in trouble. So I was able to kind of use those situations to kind of be like, hey, when I get become a leader, I want to be able to take care of my Marines like that because that meant a lot to me. When I
Yeah.
thought I was going to get kicked out of the Marine Corps because of the stupid shit I was doing, I was all down and out. And, I was like, hey, it's time for me to get out. I don't want to do this. It's not for me. But they kind of pulled me in, talked to me, told me why, this is what I was doing. This is what happens if you continue to go down this path and still kind of motivated me to stay in the fight, really. And then again, by the time I became an NCO, I was kind of able to have Marines that were kind of following that path with me and be like, look, man, this is not for you. This is what you need to do to stay on that path to actually grow inside the Marine Corps. So for some situations like that, I think it's good. I think it was good because I was able to change my ways, to see the error in my ways. And I had people around me that I thought were great leaders. That I was like, hey, I'm gonna take that from you. I'm gonna take that from you. I'm gonna take that from you. And when it's my turn to be that leader, I'm gonna put all this together and kind of be the leader that I want to be. So man,
Yep.
I think it has its ups and downs, but overall, I think I benefit from it when it comes to it. Actually,
Yeah, I would definitely say like it's weird and it definitely depends on the individual and what their opinion of a good or a bad leader is. Young me in the Marine Corps, I loved I loved a leader that didn't just feel like he had to drop the hammer, 24/7. Like if you were just cool with me, I was the type of person that was going to get some stuff done, but
yep.
if you were an asshole to me, like, yeah, I'm probably still going to get that stuff done because I'm just a junior Marine at that time. But it's like, man, I got no motivation, no drive to do it. Like, I mean, I think at that point in my career, let's just say like PFC Lance Corporal, one of my I can envision them right now. My two favorite Marines that I looked up to. I want to be like this. I want to emulate them. The Marine Corps, eyes, they didn't necessarily like these people. You know, they weren't the most physically fit. They weren't the most vocal or anything like that. They weren't the person out there devil dogging people. They just said what needed to get done, and they were cool people. And I was like, man, that's exactly what I wanted to become. Come to find out, that didn't necessarily work with me. Once I became like a corporal, which I was officially at that point a leader of Marines. Luz, what was some of your experiences as a young NCO, you know, with some Marines underneath your charge? Also do me a favor and like talk a little bit about the fact that amongst the three of us, like, you came from a different atmosphere. You know, you're a combat related field. That's something that I've got little experience with, to be honest.
Okay, yeah, Dom. So first, something that you hit on, you know, motivation, right? I felt like throughout my time as I grew into my leadership style, I saw better results from Marines that were motivated and happy to work under my charge than the Marines that were just doing it because I outranked them or just there to not get in trouble, you know. I'm just here so I don't get fined, type of stuff, you know. But also took from the bad leadership and, you know, learn what not to do or things that I didn't like. So that's always something that, you know, take a positive out of a negative situation. But growing up in the Marine Corps, I was combat arms. I was a tank crewman, so I was still a pogue. For those of you that don't know what pogue is, personnel other than grunt. But we got treated just like if we were like an infantry unit, because we're combat arms. Is a different mindset. I mean, you're talking about at some point in your career, during the time of war, you're going to deploy, you're gonna put your life on the line, that type of stuff. So we dealt with, dare I say the word, hazing a lot, right? We dealt with hazing, law crawling. So during field days, police calling, right? This is where we're looking for trash as NCOs are behind us, throwing cigarette butts, talking about we missed one. Yeah, good times. And I was also stationed in 29 Palms, California. But if you've ever been there, you know it sounds beautiful, but it ain't. It's desert and it's hot. But yeah, no, it was miserable. And to me, that was horrible leadership, because I was one of those Marines that I did everything I was told, in to the best of my abilities. But I was also at the time a junior married Marine, so that took away from my time at home, and it sucked. But you know, coming up through that type of leadership styles, I definitely like initially I was a corporal and I had friends that were under my charge. So think about being buddies like us right now, right? We were friends, and then like outranks us, and all of a sudden he starts being a dick. It's like, you know, can you separate that, right? And when you're brand new into that leadership role, it's hard because it's like you went from being bro to like, you know, are you going to be able to separate work from play, that type of stuff? There's also fraternization, which is frowned upon. And it's something that is a very big learning curve throughout the any freaking branch, right? But specifically for me in combat arms, it was hard because the corporals that were already corporals, when I joined their rank, you know, they want me to be harder on my boys than they are. You know, if I didn't come down hard on them, they'll try to come down hard on me because now we're the same rank, but then they are senior, so they still like outrank me. So that was tough. I mean, I butted heads. There was a couple of times that, you know, we talked about the in tanks we had this thing where it's like there's no rank behind the tank. You know, we had to go handle business. But that's the type of Marine Corps I came up on, and transitioning from that into recruiting duty. Holy crap! Completely.
I could imagine. I could only imagine. Yeah, I mean, it's a completely different lifestyle out there on recruiting duty. And I came from an office, as we know, I'm admin, whatever. But I mean, going from the Fleet Marine Force in general to going out to recruiting duty, whatever you had envisioned in your mind when you first got to recruiting duty is different. You see a behind the screen, like business side of the Marine Corps. And personally, I was not a fan of it. I didn't jive with it. I was not cool with it. It's like, I'm sitting here trying to do everything I can to recruit these kids. And I got my headquarters telling me like, oh, you need to do this with this kid because he's just a number. This kid just scored a 97 on the ASVAB, and you're telling me my only option is to give him a good contract? It ain't gonna happen. Yep. Which makes me look bad, like I'm disobeying what my leadership is trying to tell me to do, when realistically, I'm doing the most leader of Marine thing you could do. I'm looking out for my subordinate, although at that time, he's just a poolee. But I'm not about to put somebody on a 97 ASVAB that wants anything opposite of a cook on a cook contract because that's all y'all got. In my opinion, it's like, I am as a leader am reaching out to you. You as a leader need to try to help me assist this kid and look out for his benefit. I don't know, like maybe I'm crazy. And what about you? Do you think? Oh, go ahead, Lou. What do you got?
To add to that, Dom, so it's almost like you are being penalized for being the good leader that we're taught from an early point in the Marine Corps to be and look out for your subordinate. You're being punished for that and on the duty for doing the right thing by your subordinate. But the guy that is being, let's just say shady or an asshole and just sending his kid misinformed with nothing on a whatever contract, that guy gets praised and gets awarded.
Yeah.
That's the kind of things you deal with a lot in duty.
Yeah. Recruiting duty is different from, you don't come on to recruiting duty typically until you're a sergeant, right? And as a sergeant, you are very, very informed on what your job is in the Marine Corps, right? In a lot of situations, not all, you're almost at the top of your game, right? At that point in your career, you're confident. You got these Marines under your charge. You're advising them. You're delegating to them. You're just making shit happen. And then they pluck you out of your MOS and throw you on the streets to recruiting duty. And if you don't know, recruiting duty is a special duty assignment, and you're out there for 3 years. Anybody can forget their job in 3 years, and then they take you back to the fleet. And you've probably been promoted. Now your staff sergeant. And now you're supposed to lead these Marines, conduct this office or this work section appropriately, but you don't even remember how to do your job. The sergeant knows more than you do. Have you ever experienced anything like that, Ant?
Oh man, absolutely. Just like you said, freaking when I went to recruiting duty, I was kind of like a senior sergeant. I was out there for almost a year before I got promoted to staff sergeant. And then like you said, it was, staff sergeant for about, a year and a half, almost 2 years before I went back to the fleet. And boom, come to the fleet, come into a position that I've never been in. I went from being, a training chief to now I'm the operations chief. I'm the staff NCO of that shop. Now I have all the Marines underneath me, and I don't know my job because it's recruiting. So you kind of got to data dump your actual MOS and learn more just about the Marine Corps and how you can tell, young individuals about the whole entire Marine Corps, not just your MOS. So getting back to it, there's so many things that can change in your MOS over 3 years. You know what I mean? So like, I'm completely lost and I'm praying. I'm like, man, let me get a sergeant or a strong corporal that just knows everything that can kind of teach me. But at the same time, I'm like, I still got to lead them, take care of them, making sure they're doing the job the right way, even though I don't know how to do the job the right way. So it's a crazy concept, like it's pretty much like an OJT. It's on the job kind of training, learning how to be a better, leader with Marines I've never led in a position that I've never actually done, but doing it effectively. So when I go and deploy, I'm doing the job the right way, and it's successful deployment. So yeah, it's a crazy concept, and yeah, recruiting almost took it out of me, dog. There's a lot of bad leadership.
Yeah,
not you and Lou, not you. That was higher up.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, recruiting duty could have been better.
This is a great caveat off of that. It is a personal opinion of mine that, like we just said, a lot of times you go out to recruiting duty as a sergeant, your firm and your MOS, and then you go out there, you learn the duty, and if you like recruiting duty, you're successful at it, you can become an 8412, which is a career recruiter. That means you don't go back to your MOS, you stay on recruiting duty. It's an opinion of mine that many 8412s are the worst leaders. And I say that because they come out never having the experience of being a staff NCO, never really having to mentor young Marines and whatnot, or maybe they just forget how to do it. Next thing you know, they go out there as a young sergeant, they're drinking the Kool-Aid, everything that they're teaching you, whether it's good or bad. And next thing you know, they're a gunny, they're a master sergeant, and they haven't truly led Marines in a fleet sense in 5, 10, 15 years. So it's my opinion that 8412's career recruiters oftentimes make the worst leaders, but they sit there and like they will crap on you if you are not the best recruiter because you're only out there for 3. You don't know what they know when you've only been out there for a year and a half, but they've been doing it for 12 years.
Yep.
Now, for the viewers, I'm saying this, and these are 2 of my very best friends in this world. Lou happened to be an 8412, a career recruiter. What's your response to that, Lou?
Yes and no. I think that there's some 8412s that come to mind right now that I can definitely say they would be an excellent leader in any type of scenario. I think some of them are meant to stay in recruiting duty. They found their calling, and that's where they should be. But I also think there's some pieces of shit out there that shouldn't be in the Marine Corps anymore, and I won't sugarcoat it. So just like any job, I think we have the ones that shouldn't be in. Some in my MOS would argue that I should have never been a 12. I wonder that myself sometimes, and I don't say that because I was bad at the job. I say that because of some bad experiences through my leadership that I had. So, I came to the conclusion that I don't care what anybody thinks other than my Marines. My Marines dictate and can tell me whether I was a good leader to them or not. That's the only opinion that matters to me.
Hell yeah.
Because guess what? They're the ones that are there with you every single day. I'm a CO, I'm an RI, I'm a sergeant major. I come to your office. Maybe once a month, they're supposed to check in a box, right? Because they're supposed to do command group visits, but they never really get out there, especially in upstate New York when you're dealing with snow, distance. They don't want to come out there. They'll go and visit. They'll go visit the hell out of some Saratoga or some, Albany somewhere nearby them, right? But Syracuse, they're like, oh, y'all all the way over there. Like, y'all good. Even when in your case, sometimes you were struggling, right? By the time they come in, they just want to come in and, oh, what the fuck? Oh, here's the problem. You're not making enough phone calls. Like, that's not the problem. Like, the numbers and the data, like as we're taught as 12s, will help us, figure things out. But that's not always the problem, right? The problem, a lot of in order for you to figure out a problem, you got to talk and know your Marines, and that's the problem in recruiting duty, man. It's like people don't talk, people assume and jump to conclusions, and that's where I think the problem is with a lot of 8412s is they just they got the data, so they know you didn't make phone calls yesterday, so that's why you don't have an appointment. No, bitch, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
Man, why didn't I do phone calls? I did a school visit. I have 20 AC contacts. Out of my 20 AC contacts, I set a follow-up action with so-and-so. So-and-so hit me. Like, there's a lot of other things that I could have did that to show you that I was being productive that led to me not maybe being able to make phone calls for that day. And that's just one of many examples, right? I don't want to keep going down a tangent.
No, you're good. You're good. Like I'm literally eating up everything that you're saying. It's like you want to sit there and like call me out because I'm not meeting these numbers when the numbers say if I make X amount of phone calls, I'm supposed to write X amount of contracts on recruiting duty. But the number that you're not factoring in when you're telling me this is the fact that I smudged all of my numbers to make sure I had to make less phone calls. I went into last month's phone calls and deleted my call history just to bring that number down. You want to sit here and tell me I got to make these phone calls? I haven't written a contract off of phone calls in a year and a half. But you're telling me I need to, yeah. So trust me, I think you made great points. Like some people are truly built to be recruiters, to be good ones at that, right? But and a lot of them, or a handful of them, don't lose the fact of the mission. And the mission, one of the many missions that we have as Marines, is like to take care of our Marines, right? Yep. Of course, we have the contracting mission and the shipping mission and this and that. But what about the person who's writing your mission? That person matters too. And this kind of gets me into the point where I think that by the time I got out of the Marine Corps, I was at the top of my game when it came to leadership. And I can say that based off of my relationship with the Marines that I've led, right? And I think that if I were to have a bad relationship with them, especially now that I got out, it's probably because they're sitting there thinking like, fuck that guy, fuck Staff Sergeant, like that dude was a fucking asshole. But no, that's not the feedback that I get back. So between my relationship with the Marines under my charge, as well as the results that I had, I think that I was a good leader of Marines. But what I can definitely say is you don't just become one. You have to work at that. If you want to be a good leader of Marines, you have to work at it, because I went through so many stages. Like I thought as a young NCO that I was a great leader of Marines, but really I was just yelling at my junior Marines and making them do shit. The results came. I didn't really care about so much about how they were feeling or anything, but it was never anything like super serious that I had encountered up to that point, right? And like nobody wanted to hurt themselves or anything like that. And I was getting my results and I was turning my results into my boss, and my boss telling me like, dude, you're doing great. Next thing you know, like I'm on recruiting duty, I excel there, and then I become the boss of a recruiting substation. And what do I know about trying to drive Marines to accomplish whatever the mission is for the day? The recruiting mission, enlisting kids, I'm just hammering. Like, you don't give me these results, I'm going to do this. If you don't do that, you're forcing me to do this. You mess with my time, I'm messing with your time. I'm doing all of these things because that's what I'm being taught to do, right, by my leaders. And I don't know how to be a boss of a recruiting substation. I've never done that before. This is all new to me. So I'm trying to drink the Kool-Aid. I'm trying to do these things, and I'm not getting the results. So now my leaders are telling me that I'm a piece of shit because I'm not drinking enough Kool-Aid. And next thing you know, on the personal side, things start going wrong. So I'm failing professionally. I'm failing personally. I don't know what to do. And I literally broke down. There was a point where I drove to work. I'm sitting right outside of my office, and I'm sitting there like, bro, what else can I do? My dad calls me out of nowhere. He calls me because he knows I'm going through it. And he was like, hey, I've been there. Just keep your head up. Keep pushing forward, and whatever that little thing in the back of your head is telling you to do, don't do it. And it's like he knew exactly how I felt at that exact moment, because I'm just sitting there like, I got all this stuff on my plate. I got Marines that probably hate me. I've got bosses that hate me because I can't do this. I've got family stuff that's going wrong. And all of a sudden, my dad called. I'm telling you, I broke down in my car crying. Like, just like, damn, I'm completely out of it. I clean myself up, whatever. I go into the office. I call my numbers in to my bosses. Get shitted on. Boom, just that fast. Oh, man, you're like, you ain't got no appointments. And I'm just like, damn. I closed my office door and I'm just sitting there with my head down. And then like Ant had mentioned before, because Ant was one of my recruiters once upon a time. He could just hear me getting it from the head shed. My bosses, like boom, 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 boom. And at that point, they had came in once I got off the phone, and they, as my subordinates, my recruiters, came in and just like lifted me back up, gave me some positive reinforcement, even though I've been driving them nonstop. And that's when it all clicked to me. Like, what am I doing? I've been pushing them so hard. Their families could be at jeopardy. They themselves could be at jeopardy. I'm questioning everything that I knew about the Marine Corps. And these Marines that I've been driving so hard came in and lifted me back up. I finished the duty because of that conversation that we had, and like for real, because I was about to tap out of that shit. And I'm not even joking. And I went to the fleet and I had back to my normal job when I finished the duty. And I just completely decided to change everything about how I viewed a leader of Marines. So I've been running my mouth for a minute. So yeah, what do you got?
Yo, so listening to you and Lou talk, I got a question for both y'all, and I want to hear y'all's take. Is toxic leadership contagious?
Yes, my opinion is yes. Because I mean, Dom can talk about his experience, but I mean, I think he hit the nail on the head. He was letting the way they were, their leadership style, influence his style, and in retrospect, rubbing off and coming off that way to y'all. And you know, coming like there comes a point where like you're getting so much pressure, and if you give a shit you're about your job, or you're competitive, or whatever the case may be, which I know in all of our cases we do, it bothers you. It bothers you, and when you're getting shitted on, you're getting pushed down. Hell, I had a major, bro. My CO in New York, you know who you are. That he freaking came from tanks, man. Came from the tanks background. He like looked at me. He goes like, "Some tanker you must have been." Like, dude knew nothing about me. They put me in a recruiting substation that hadn't made mission in like 3 years or however long it was. I knew nothing about it. I keep being told, get rid of X, Y, and Z, and we'll give you new Marines. X, Y, and Z have families. They have kids. Those are things that they're not thinking about. They're just like, fuck them, fuck them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not built that way, man. I'm just not. And some people view that as a weakness. I actually don't. I view it as a strength, because I have the balls to freaking sit here and struggle and eventually know that my office is going to get to where it needs to get to. And I mean, at that point in my life, it cost me my marriage, because I was working 7 days a week. I never got to see my at that time my wife. And did they give a fuck? No. Like when I said that I was gonna go through a divorce, I like, hey, I need some time. The Marines, like if you can get somebody in here while I get myself straight. Nah, you're good. I'm good. Oh, you said I'm good. Okay, I'm good. So that type of toxicity was like just affected me. And then finally, when somebody talked some sense into somebody else, I wasn't relieved. Like, motherfucker, yes, the fuck I was. I was taken out of my office because we weren't making mission. I'll say this much: we weren't making mission because we weren't putting bodies up. It was a hard area to work. And my last, I'll say it, like my last mission letter there, we were on for 10. I threw 21 bodies on deck, 3 made it.
It's tough.
So what happens? We all know not everybody's permanently disqualified. What happens with all those other kids?
You send them back up.
They came back the next month when I'm no longer the staff in CYC, the station made mission. They got ahead. All of a sudden, the new guy's a hero.
Yep.
And I'll
And
never.
he gets that credit.
He gets that credit. And you know, I don't care about that because to this day, I remember Staff Sergeant Kenny at the time walks up to me, one of the many Marines they wanted me to get rid of, and he turned into a bone roller for that office. He comes up to me and he goes like, I looked at Master Guns and said, we had a leader. Gunny Vega was a leader. We just threw the same kids that we had with him last month back up. So
That's a real one.
And to me, that's all the validation I needed.
Yep.
But that toxicity definitely, man, it affected me. Hell, dog, when I was finally allowed to take leave, I came up to Syracuse to see you, to talk, because we're actually going through some of the same thing at the same time.
Yep. Yeah.
And I'll say it to this day, like, you are a big reason why I kind of like was reminded of who the fuck I am and got myself put together and, you know, sucked it up and I was even about to re-enlist. I ended up deciding to get out because it was more of the same bullshit elsewhere. But you know, you guys, you know, talking to you guys, especially you, Dom, was a big reason I was able to kind of get out of that toxic mindset and put myself in a position to successfully complete my time, because up until that point in my career, I had never had anything negative.
This is what I really want to hammer in to all the viewers. Right. You know, it's so easy to blame your leader of their shortfalls. Right. And sometimes it might be the leader. But also you have to hone in on the fact of what are you doing? Because if you haven't been a leader, let me be the first one to tell you, leadership is a burden. It's hard. To be a good leader, it's hard. Are you a boss or are you a leader of Marines? Right? Those are two different people. A boss sits back, leaned back with his feet on his desk, making sure that people are out there doing, you know, the Lord's work. But leaders are showing them. They're in the trenches with their boys. Like to be a true leader, a good leader, that is taxing work, hard. There's so many things to concern yourself with. And I mean, I decided to get out of the Marine Corps at my 12-year mark, not because I was in trouble, not because I did this wrong or nothing. I got out of the Marine Corps at the top of my game. And I chose to get out because I was just simply exhausted. I was tired. You know, it's like if you're doing something right and your leaders see this guy gets it done every time, you become the go-to guy. You're already exhausting yourself, making sure your stuff is tight. And now you got people coming to you that outrank you, telling you, hey, I need you to knock this out. Hey, I need you to knock this out. And that's just adding to your plate. But you trying to be that good leader, like you're making sure it all gets done. It don't matter how many hours you're putting in. It don't matter if, all of a sudden, my one Marine over here, he just had a death in his family. Like now, you know, I got to take care of him. I got to make sure he or she is good. But now that he left to go and handle his personal business, I got to fill in that role while I'm still making sure all this other stuff is happening. It's a crazy world out there. And like, to answer your question, your original question, yes, I think that toxic leadership is certainly contagious. It's absolutely, because you're not jumping into the way that your leaders are trying to teach you. You instantly turn into the black sheep. And what happens to the black sheep? They get ousted. They're on the outside. And it can truly be as simple as you view the way you lead a certain way. You believe in your Marines. You lead your Marines the way you see fit. They respect you. But the leader over here is saying, like, no, like you're not following suit. You're the problem. So it's so easy for you to just kind of feed into all of those things. And honestly, to be a good Marine, you have to go through, not to be a good Marine, but to be a good leader, you have to go through those trials. Like, hey, you have to be able to continue to adjust yourself in the direction that you want to go. How do you see yourself? That's the way I kind of feel about it. I hope I answered your question on that, Ant.
To add to that too, it doesn't only affect you as a leader, it affects the whole environment around you. Because you know, as you said that, I'm sitting here thinking, I was like, man, like there were people in my command that like were just as toxic as them as a result of that type of leadership style. Like, you know, everybody wants to talk and say this, you know, why you got out. Like, oh, Dom, you must have gotten out because, you know, you got in trouble at 12 years. I got out at 13 years because I got an extension to re-enlist, and then I said I didn't want to re-enlist anymore. But then all of a sudden I got out because I'm a fat piece of shit. Like, what? You know, those are the things that I was hearing after I got out.
Right.
People that I didn't even have a working relationship with. So I'm like, all right, yeah, good to go. Because I felt height and weight. Got it. But it just little stupid things like that. You know, I learned to not let it affect me. But those are the type of stupid things. It almost becomes a childish, like a high school type environment. And I mean, who wants to work around that?
Facts.
At that point, it's like, oh yeah, are you gonna click up or not with the cool kids? You gonna click up with the cool kids? Like, dude, it really depends on what type of cool you are, because the cool that I'm seeing is over there. It ain't you. Like,
I didn't get along with my peers. I can tell you that my 8412 community, there's very few select guys that I like. I can't even count 5 of them, but a couple that I can think of that I'm like, I would have served under them in any capacity because they're phenomenal leaders, they're phenomenal men. But for the most part, bro, like, oh my God, clicky. Like, if you ever wanted to experience what a frat life was like, become an 8412. Fucking hate them.
Yeah. Not all of them.
Right.
Some of them are cool.
Yeah,
Some of them are cool. But like Lou's cool. He hates 12s like we do. I'm just kidding. I think that it's also important to remember that you can talk about bad leaders all day, but maybe the leader truly is doing everything right, and you're the lazy piece of shit that's not doing what you need to do. Let me just say that again. Maybe it's not your leader. It's you not doing what you need to do. Your leader may have all these things that we've just discussed kind of going on, and you get tasked with doing something that you're maybe not the most familiar with. Maybe your leader just believes in you and expects that you're able to find the answer, because we have Marine Corps orders and manuals and policy letters and all these things at our fingertips. But the truth is that nobody really wants to read that shit. Nobody does. I don't. And I can say for a fact, like, through all them years of doing admin work, it was impossible to learn all of these manuals and just know them. Like, bro, I'm not built like Google. I'm not. Anybody could look up something and come in and look up something online, come in, hey, Staff Sergeant, like, what about this? I was the guy that was not going to give you a definitive answer on the spot, because I give you an answer, you walk out of there and say to the next person, well, admin just told me this, so yeah, we're good. Ain't happening like that. So you have to be able to look this stuff up. If you want knowledge, go and seek the knowledge. Maybe ask somebody, but definitely dive in and do some research. How do you think that everybody above you learned what they know? I think that that's a very important part. I really do. And you ever experience any? I know y'all got manuals over there, what y'all do. Ant's job and my job were fairly similar, right? I'm the bigger pogue because my job is called admin, but he does a lot of admin work over there.
Yeah, man, freaking leadership is crazy, especially, I mean, in mine, like you said, you know, like sometimes not the leader, sometimes it's just the Marine. But I do think a great leader is always learning. And that to me, that's gonna make him a successful leader, because even though we're all Marines, we're all in one shop, we're one unit, we're all still people at the end of the day. So I may be able to yell at you and you fix yourself right away, but if I yell at Lou, he's gonna, go inside and hide from us and break down. So I gotta talk to Lou. So a great leader is gonna learn about the people that are underneath him and be able to coach them in the way that they're able to turn out that corner and become successful. So we can all achieve and accomplish that one goal that we have. I think the beautiful thing about the Marine Corps is we truly believe when it comes to leadership of the crawl, walk, run mentality, man. Like
Yes.
you come into, especially enlisted, you come into the Marine Corps as a private, you ain't doing much. Like, hey, go clean some, some bathrooms, throw out some trash, and you're good for the day. And then you get
Mhm.
promoted, and you got a little bit more responsibility. And then you get promoted, and you got a little bit more responsibility. So by the time you become that NCO, that corporal, now it's your first job really being a leader in the Marine Corps. Now you kind of know what to do because you've been through all three of those ranks. You kind of experienced what you had to go through, and you kind of turn around and make that thing your own. So again, like it's experiences in the Marine Corps that's gonna make or break a great leader.
Mhm.
You know, like we mentioned earlier, going to a previous question, unfortunately, sometimes toxic leadership is contagious, but you get being able to break that and put yourself in a position to actually break that mold. You know what I mean? Like, hey, when I become a leader, I know I'm not gonna do this. I didn't like how that affected me. I didn't like how he made those Marines feel. So when I become, a corporal, a sergeant, a staff sergeant, I know what I got to do to make sure everybody's on the same page, everybody's taken care of. That's the biggest thing. There's a difference between caring for a Marine and coddling a Marine. It's a fine line, but care for your Marines, give a fuck. Figure out what you can do to take care of them professionally and personally, and those Marines are going to bend over backwards to do the thing that you need them to do for y'all to be successful overall. It's just really like we're going back to episodes and episodes. Just give a fuck about
Yeah.
you and your Marines, and everything's gonna be fine.
Taking care of
Yeah.
Marines also doesn't necessarily mean that you're calling them, or here's my little baby, right? It,
Yep.
it means you're being firm but fair, right, with
Yep.
them. So like that, I don't want that to get misconstrued out there. We're not saying like be a baby your Marines or anything like that. And I also want to add, as a leader, I think that and I'll ask y'all this question after I'll give my answer. But what was the hardest thing for you to do as a leader? For me, the hardest thing that I had to do as a leader was admit when I was wrong.
Yep.
And it was so difficult because like you're in the moment, you're trying to do something, and then it's you're doing self-analyzing of what happened when something goes wrong, right? And being able to take ownership and accountability of that wasn't always the easiest thing. And I mean, I wasn't perfect. There's times I messed up. I messed up plenty. And
Uh-huh.
there were times that it was my fault. There were times that it wasn't. There were times that it was my Marine's fault. But guess what? That's my Marines was my fault.
Yep.
And being able to take the burden off of my Marines, that was one of the things that I pride myself in the most, because these guys are under enough pressure and enough scrutiny as it is, especially during their evaluation process. I'll take it in the chin for them. That's something I pride myself in. And I didn't really even think about it until you brought it up to me one day, Dom, where you're like, man, I didn't realize how much stuff you kept from us, from the command group,
Yeah.
and the things that they said. And he told me, I appreciate you. And I didn't think about it. I was just naturally doing it, right? And I'm like,
Yeah.
man, like that made me like make sure that I was kept doing that for my
Yeah.
next Marines. But what about you, Dom? What were some of the hardest things that you had to deal with as a leader?
Well, I mean, I'll circle back to that answer, but I'll just say this, like, yeah, me and you had that conversation once upon a time. But the crazy thing is, for the viewers, if you haven't seen the other episodes, Lou was both of our boss, and then Lou went to a different recruiting station, and I took his place. I became the boss, and then, I'm struggling and whatever. Next thing you know, Ant comes and has the same exact conversation with me. You know what I mean? And that Ant coming to tell me that was a reflection of you. I learned that from you. So, and it's a hard thing because, I mean, I enlisted kids. Like I never really had the biggest issue with that. Every now and then it was a slow month and maybe I didn't have as many kids or whatever. But as far as recruiting, like analytics go, Nobody could tell me that I was a bad recruiter. Like I was definitely above average. And just knowing that, like, yeah, sometimes Lou would try to come down on me, right? And it's fair because sometimes I took my foot off the gas pedal because I thought I had already made it. But at the end of the day, we as an office need to come together. But what I'd never heard, not once ever while I worked under Lou, was somebody from higher coming and telling me that I wasn't doing my shit right. If that was going to be told, it was always going to be told from Lou, right? So I actually learned that from you. I tried my best to maintain that, and Ant ended up having a conversation about the same exact thing with me once upon a time. But to answer your question, it's actually, I think that it would be a similar answer, but I'm going to rephrase it a little bit different. It's when somebody would ask me something. This is not recruiting. This is more so the fleet. Somebody asks me something as the admin chief. I run the show here. This is all mine. And I don't know the answer. That would always make me feel like I was like less than dirt, bro. I look up and all I can see is the flowers starting to grow because I'm buried. Like, bro, I'm telling you, like, somebody asked me something and I have no clue what they're talking about. I felt like I failed. I felt like I failed because that also means I haven't taught that to my Marines. So yeah, I think that would be my answer. What about you, Ant?
I think the thing I had to learn about leadership is that even though we're Marines, we're people as well. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
you're
a
being
good one.
taught through boot camp that, like, hey, you're a machine. You don't feel pain. We work through adversity. We accomplish the mission, which is true. No matter what, we're always going to accomplish the mission. But we're also freaking people. And as a leader, you got to take care of your people. You know what I mean? I can't just come over there and work them 12 hours a freaking day, 7 days a week, and expect them not to break or expect them to have anything freaking personal happen in their personal lives. And, when I started to realize, like, man, they got personal things going on, I was like, well, what do I do? I wasn't taught how to do this. And so it's just kind of, dealing with those blows, understanding, hey, what do you need from me? I think
Yeah.
as a leader, you should be able to sit down with your junior Marines and be like, hey, what is your expectations of me? Because I want to live up to your expectations, but at the same time, you're gonna live up to my expectations. You know what I mean? And that's one thing you
Yep.
just had to learn.
Yeah,
The good
for
thing about the
real.
Marine Corps is that every couple of years you go to new units. So if I'm a shitty leadership, I can continue to get better and better. So when I go to the next unit, I'm a rock star. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that brings up a memory that I just want to hit on before we end the episode. But it's like, oftentimes our Marines, they might judge us on something that we haven't experienced before because of how we handle a situation. Here's an example. At the time, I don't have it. I'm a young sergeant, I think. I don't have any kids. My Marine has a kid, a female Marine, and she's got, oh, I got to pick up my kid from daycare. I got to do this. I got to do that. And the whole time I'm sitting there like it was pissing me off. You're coming up with excuses. Go and pick up your kid, come back to work with the kid, and finish your work. Like, that's for real, like, how I was handling things as a young Marine. And then I have kids. And I was like, bro, if my kid runs a fever to a certain degree, they ain't allowed in the child development center. They're not allowed in daycare. Not only that, but they can't go the next day either. You have to be 24 hours without a fever before you can take your kid back. I didn't know that. Who teaches that, and where is it in any Marine Corps curriculum? It's nowhere.
Wow.
You have to learn some things like that through experiences, just like Ant said. That, bro, I'm telling you, I think back on the conversations that I had with that Marine, and it makes me cringe, bro. Like, I felt like such a piece of shit because here I am. Now I'm a parent times 2. And it's like, damn, one kid just got healthy. The other one got sick. I can't quit getting phone calls from the CDC and the Child Development Center and I just keep missing work. I keep missing work, and when I miss work, that means it's falling on to my junior Marines. And oh man, so there's a plethora of scenarios and experiences out there. Of course, there's bad leaders, but I would almost argue that there's more good leaders in the Marine Corps.
Absolutely.
Right? Like the Marine Corps is a beautiful place, and I don't regret my service at all. I love everything that the Marine Corps has taught me, both good and bad. Right? But at the same time, it truly is up to you. And what type of information are you seeking? Are you asking the right questions? Are you doing the right research? And of course, if you're doing those things, sometimes something may go wrong where you need some more guidance. Ask. And if your leader is not willing to entertain that situation when you've been doing all of these good things, you probably got a bad leader at that point. All right. So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the After Actions podcast. Make sure you've liked the video, subscribe, got the notification bell turned on, and stay tuned for the next episode of the After Actions podcast.